Hi, my name's Rick Langer, and I'm your host for iFLIPs. In this particular iFLIP, I'm here with Matthew Weathers, one of our mathematics professors here at Biola. In an earlier iFLIP, he talked about the idea of an irrational number being a number that you cannot write down as a ratio of two whole numbers. And one of the interesting things he showed is that you can actually prove that that kind of a number cannot be written. And I found it intriguing when he was talking to me about this to just think of the idea that we can actually know certain things that we do not know. In other words, we know that we don't know it, and it is unknowable. And I think, Matthew, what struck me about that is a lot of times as we talk about a thing like that, we assume that, oh, if we can't know it, then we don't bother trying to figure it out. We don't even pay attention to it. And it seems like in the case of mathematics, that's not a good plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this idea of the square root of 2 being something that you cannot write down is true. You can't write down square root of 2. But that doesn't mean that for practical purposes you can't still get pretty close. Like if I write down 14,142 divided by 10,000, you know what, I could probably build a house with that number. Or if I need 10 more digits or 100 more digits or 1,000,000 more digits, a computer could figure it out. But philosophically, we can never know the exact answer to what is the square root of 2.
And historically, is it true that Pythagoras is very disturbed by that fact? And what were the implications of that for the development of mathematics?
Well, yeah, so it turns out that he originally thought, well, first of all, a lot of this is legend. We're not sure how much of this is exactly what happened, but the story goes that he originally thought that everything could be written down as a ratio of a whole number divided by a whole number. In other words, even our word rational kind of hints at the idea that those are the only rational, meaningful numbers.
Yeah.
And so he said everything is rational. But when he encountered this proof, in fact, one legend even says that the guy who sort of spilled the beans on this proof, Hypasus of Metapontum, got thrown overboard in anger because he was disproving their theology that God is number and all this.
Geometry was a lot more exciting back then.
Yes, yes. In fact, that was exactly what happened. For hundreds of years, Greek mathematicians sort of preferred geometry over numbers and algebra just because they said, look, you can't even write down the square root of 2, but I can draw the square root of 2. And so all of these quadratic equations and things, they had really sort of complicated ways of doing those in geometry. But because they didn't use numbers as much, you could make an argument for the idea that retarded the progress of mathematics by several hundred years even. So it's ironic actually that these lovers of mathematics, the ones who actually almost worshipped mathematics, the Pythagoreans, would be responsible for retarding its progress by a couple hundred years.
Another thing that it strikes me where this comes out is in our desire, as I mentioned before, theologically for certainty. And I spend time talking to students a lot of times about issues like God's sovereignty and God's free will. And I've noticed that there seems to be a tension that comes up mainly because we want to have things absolutely certain and no remaining tension. So if people look at human freedom and say, well, for me to be free, I have to be able to do anything I want. If I can do anything I want, then God can't be sovereign because I'm in control of certain things. So you see this great tension. On the other hand, people will say, well, because God is sovereign, therefore I can't really be free. And so we create this sort of freezing paradox in terms of our thinking. And I wonder if we wouldn't be a lot better off sometimes if we could acknowledge the fact that I need to act as if I'm free. I need to pray as if God is sovereign. And I need to trust the fact that the real problem here isn't so much some puzzle about what does it mean to be human, or even a puzzle about what does it mean to be God, but rather the puzzle is exactly where those two things meet, at the interface between God and man. And then I can say, I know things about a man. We are free and responsible for our actions. I know things about God. He is sovereign relative to the created order. The thing I don't understand always is exactly at the point of the interface between God and man on an issue like that. And perhaps that lesson of saying it's worthwhile to simply identify an area of unknown and also to mark out the areas around it that are known is a thing that might be liberating in our thinking, both philosophically and theologically. And that's really a benefit of some of the things that you learn from actually doing the rigors of mathematics.
Yeah, I like that math gives little tidbits and little examples of these philosophical ideas.
So there's a quick look at math and some of the ways it may connect more broadly into in our intellectual and theological life. Thanks for joining us for this iFLIP.